So to kick off this wonderful track, I'd like to welcome Liam from Tebex to the stage, who's going to be talking about D2C monetization, a cost savings shift, or something more. So please welcome Liam to the stage.
Yeah, hi. It's great to be here. Really pleased to be kicking off this Webstore Wizardry track this afternoon. Now, I don't know about you, but it felt like that in 2025, everywhere I looked, all I saw was news around Apple, Google, and D2C. It's something that personally I'm very excited about. There are so many opportunities and so many avenues to explore and ways that studios can take advantage of this, but there's also a hell of a lot of nuance that goes missing in those headlines. So today, I'm going to talk a little bit about the real why that we see behind D2C and how to make the most of those opportunities. Before I go on, before I do that, I just want to say, organizing events like this take an incredible amount of work. There is so much from selecting the content to organizing the venue to AV and everything else besides that I just want to kind of take a quick second and acknowledge the efforts of the whole team that put this together. It's a real pleasure and a real privilege to be here. So for myself personally, thank you, everyone that is involved. And also, if you do get a chance to speak to any of the organizers, just let them know kind of the things that you've appreciated, maybe the things that could be improved next time. I know they will really appreciate that. So, as I said, a lot of the time last year, every time I fired up my browser, there was some new headline about such and such a country, or this legal case, or a judge makes an update in Australia, or the US, or Japan, or wherever it might have been. All the focus has been on Apple and Google, and to what degree that they are going to have to open up their ecosystems. Now, let's be real, they're not doing this by choice. If they had their way, it would stay completely closed, but they are being forced to open it up. We are already seeing across the world regulators making these changes. Regulators have set rules in Japan, in South Korea, and then in other places such as Brazil and UK, these investigations are ongoing. And of course, we have the well-published court cases in the States. A lot of the early mentions of D2C that focused on that reduction in fees. This is the thing we talked about, right? Stop letting platforms take 30%, 35% more revenue in your pocket, these sorts of things. These were the key headlines. And I get it, that grabs attention when you're, putting it, if you've got a PR company putting it out to publications, that's the thing that's going to get people excited. Now, this can be true. If you go down I have a web shop, it is not linked to my game in any way, shape, or form. I'm going to drive traffic to it, from a different route, not doing that kind of in-app purchase replacement. That is still a possibility. But for true in-app purchases and driving that traffic from your game, I think we're now recognizing that those level of savings are not going to be the case. It's clear that Google and Apple are still going to take their piece. And of course, there are going to be other costs on top, payment processing fees, fraud detection, all of these sorts of things. So there will definitely still be savings overall, 100%, but it's not going to be necessarily at the scale that was suggested in the early days. So some of you might sit there and go, well, is there any point then? Should we just carry on doing what we've been doing? It works. Is there any value? And no, it is not for nothing. There is still real benefits and real values. It's just that they go far beyond the fees. The solutions for D2C are going to be different wherever you look. We have web shops, we have in-game links, even full-on in-game stores that directly link to the payments. It's very clear D2C is here to stay. We are now moving out of that early adopter phase. We're no longer talking about D2C as a nice to have. It is becoming a must have. And I genuinely believe that 2026 will be the year that D2C becomes a strategic necessity. But what does this all mean? This is all fancy words and, Liam's up there going blah, blah, de blah. But what does it actually mean? Why does it matter? What are the benefits? What are the risks? Everybody is busy. I don't know any studios that have people just sat there twiddling their thumbs. I'm sure some of you wish you had more time to twiddle your thumbs than you actually do. So how do we prioritize D2C against this backdrop of everything else that we've got going on? Games have changed. You think about games when I was young and they still came on tapes, and it's a very, very different world. Games are no longer one and done, and they haven't been for a while. They are long-lived platforms with evolving economies, evolving content, new kind of monetization strategies happening all the time. And these tails can be years and years long. We're not measuring games in months and years anymore. We are measuring games in decades. We're talking live service. We're talking cross-platform. We're talking UGC and creator layers and whole in-game economies, continuous content drops, all of these things. We're always looking for new ways to engage with players over a much longer period. And therefore, we need to come up with new strategies to monetize, to retain those players, and optimize the payment flow. This is crucial to survival. But at the same time, owning D2C payments adds a lot more to an already very full plate. Payments are not a solved problem. This is something that Tebex really, really believes in. Payments done right are a growth engine. They're a way to engage with your players, have touch points that a lot of studios just don't have and don't have the internal capacity to do. As your game grows, your audience and their expectations will grow alongside it. And so do the challenges. The more players you have on a global landscape, there are complexities around compliance and legislation and customer rights and expected levels of support and all of this stuff. And global expansion adds to that friction. So going D2C, yes, it means adding a new channel, but it means adding a new channel with new best practices, with new partnerships, new ways of forging relationships with your players. And that sudden responsibility for compliance, for fraud, so for support, refunds, chargebacks, subscriptions and all of this stuff never stops. So I've talked a bit about why D2C is a pain in the ass, but is it worth it? Yes, it is worth it in so many ways. The big thing for us and the thing that Tebex really, really focuses on is how it enables direct relationships with players. In-app purchases via Google and Apple are great, and they work. And I will be honest, now and again, I will still make purchases through Google and Apple, particularly if I'm feeling lazy. I get it. But there's this kind of invisible divide between the game and the studio and the player. Having that direct connection, that direct relationship, which then kind of can spill out into Discord and forums and all of these things, is something that having a direct D2C position with the players enables. It unlocks new mechanisms for retention, trust. It drives LTV. There are often conversations about, is D2C just cannibalizing existing sales? No, the data shows that yes, that first sale they may have made on in-app purchases, but they're more likely to have those repeat purchases. And you can kind of train and educate players into this mentality of, the web shop's not a place to go because you have to. The web shop is a place to go because it brings additional value. And as you educate and you kind of reset the expectations of players, their long-term value, their lifetime value just grows and grows. There are also, there are those cost savings. We've talked about that. And they are important. If I go to my board of directors and go, hey, I found a way to save us 10%, they'll think I walk on water. But that's not the be-all and end-all. That is one part of it. It is not the only thing. So I guess the message that I've got here is D2C needs to become more than just a cost discussion. It is important. I'm never going to say to you, ignore the savings. No, they exist. They are real. They are awesome. But there's so much more, and it needs to be that strategic conversation about growth and about players. Winning studios do this, and they do it differently. They own that player relationship. As I talked, that kind of direct touch point and that direct relationship with your players is so valuable. The additional data and the insights that you can drive by doing that change the game. They design payment experiences that actually feel like part of the game. It feels like a natural extension. You don't feel jarred in this kind of context switch. That conversion, and it builds trust and repeat spending. They optimize locally. They understand that players in Brazil are going to think and feel and experience payments differently to the US or France or Thailand or wherever. They understand that it's a different expectation, and you have to kind of tailor it for each of those. They measure success beyond fee saves. They're looking at conversion rates, lifetime value, retention. These are the sorts of things that truly, truly make a difference. And they see monetization as a product decision. When I started in this industry more years ago than I care to admit, payments were still very much just it's kind of like a financy thing. It's under the CFO. And one of the things that I've argued for a long time is payments is its own specialism. Payments experts have levels of knowledge and insight and experience that you can't get by being an accountant or by being an auditor or whatever that might be. And it should be seen as this kind of product-driving contributor, not just a line item on a spreadsheet somewhere. So this is why I think it's important, but that's all well and good. I can stand up here and I could talk for 10 hours about the wonders of D2C, and you'd all be sat there going, well, that's great, but what do I do about it? So this is what we want to do. Now, we work with a lot of partners from studios like Hypixel Studios, so we were the D2C provider for the Hytale launch. Rockstar Games, Take-Two, Studio Wildcard. Then we also do kind of mods and scripts. We deal with Minecraft servers and modders in Ark Survival Ascended and The Sims and all these sorts of things. And through all of that stuff, we have identified kind of 5 key kind of points and key things that you should focus on that really, really drive D2C. Now, it's important to say, not every studio or every game is going to have all 5 of these. But even if you've got 1 or 2 of them that you're doing really, really well, that is going to take you, far head and shoulders above someone who's just seeing it as a line item on a spreadsheet. First of all, routing optimization. Automating your decision making. So Tebex, one of the things that we do is we have multiple partners for cards, for wallets, for local payment methods. We don't just white label a provider and call it a day. We built our own orchestration system because nothing out there did what we wanted and we were fussy. And by having that optimization, you can really maximize every single possible purchase and you're not leaving money on the table. Local payment methods. Not having the right methods means that your players cannot purchase. In some regions, up to 70% of all transactions won't be with cards and PayPal. They'll be with local wallets, account to account, buy now, pay later, all of these things. Method framing. It's fine having all those methods, but if a customer doesn't know, if a player doesn't know up front that they have that option, there's going to be uncertainty. Should I make this purchase? Am I going to pick these items and build this bundle and then not be able to pay for it? So showing up front, these are your options. We understand where you are from. We understand what's important to you, and we're giving you that information so that they have the confidence to buy the way they want. Understanding the customer life cycle. What makes them abandon a purchase? What might make them purchase again? All of these things are really important. Issuing gift cards, they create a sense of urgency and a locked-in spend. Building muscle memory and habits. We talked earlier about the fact that we kind of need to retrain players to use these web shops and see them as a destination, not a necessity. And part of that is, providing kind of life cycles that incentivize them to maybe go and claim a free reward each day. And the first day, they'll probably just claim the reward. The second day, they'll probably just claim the reward. But by the 3rd, 4th, 5th, they will start to take notice and go, oh, that looks interesting. Oh, I was looking for something like that. And it builds that muscle memory that they just visit the web shop as part of their habit. And finally, store design. Personalizing offers, going further than segmentation and looking at true per-player shopping experiences. Simplify the spending decision. Even if you've got 20 options of things they could buy, that's just going to cause oh my God, there's too much here, I don't know what to do, and they'll freeze, and more often than not, they'll just give up. If you give them 1 or 2 perfectly curated items that are perfect for them, that are going to make the difference for them, that is going to cause a lot higher conversion, and it shows, we see it cause higher conversion rates than showing them 10, maybe I'll buy that. If you go down the off-app route, build that confidence by making the store feel like an extension to the game. All of these things unlock such opportunities, higher conversion rates, higher average transaction values, better retention and repeat spending, and ultimately stronger relationships and player trust. And it works at scale. Now, every game and every gamer is different, But by optimizing the journey, by showing relevant payment methods, by presenting the right information and the right options to the right player at the right moment in time, we see significantly higher purchases. An increase by things that we can do, like a 21% increase in successful payments with Moonsworth. Hypixel, when they started offering buy now, pay later and crypto options, the average transaction value for those transactions doubled. And Hightail, during their launch, nearly 9% of all their transactions were by LPMs. Now, if you've got a game that's doing, even 5 million, but 5, 10, whatever $1 million, losing 9 to 10% of your volume would be massive. So I've talked about all this stuff, and there are a lot of pieces to D2C. Having your in-game store, having your web store, having global payment processing, tax compliance, fraud, chargebacks, all of these things, there's a lot to do. Who here feels they have the time to manage all this stuff? No one. And that's fair. You 100% can do this stuff. If you're at a studio and you're going, we can do this, you probably can. But what are you sacrificing in order to do so? And this is why someone like Tebex exists. We are an extension to your studio. We are not here to be the hero. We are here to be the Luigi to your Mario. We are here to support you and enable D2C at high scale and for long-term growth. So, please feel free to talk to any of the Tebex team that are here. We would love to help and give you that advice and those suggestions. And thank you. We don't have any time for questions. I'm literally, the blinky light's going off. So thank you so much, everybody. Feel free, we've got a booth just over the stairs. Feel free to grab me and ask any questions later.
Thank you so much, Liam. Can we give him another round of applause, please?